Because a part of what it is we're trying to do is to have people that are from the jurisdictions being affected to sit on the police trial boards, for instance, that determine what happens when law enforcement does that. The other piece is that only sworn law enforcement officers can investigate when situations happen. And so if you remove that, then it makes it so that outside entities can do the investigation, and then they have the kind of information that we don't currently have, in those, grand jury proceedings. Right now, part of the problem is it's so insulated, right? It's them policing themselves, it's them sharing information with themselves, and so it's so insulated that there's no legal mechanism from which a person outside the institution can come in and say, okay, here's what's going on. And I think we have to have, some suspicion about why would it be the case that they wouldn't want other people to be in, during the procedures that they do to determine disciplinary actions. Why wouldn't they want community folks there? It would only give them greater credibility to the things that they say. And so I think that's a big part, in terms of your question, that's a big piece of what it is, that we're trying to get at, with the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights amendments.
You have a question? I just want to clarify a few things that people may be trying to follow along. So indictment is like criminal persecution, right? So he's asking a question about when police are accused of a crime of brutality, an incredible amount of the percentage of the time, you have to make a decision whether you go to trial or not, and people just give the police the benefit of the doubt. So we want to challenge that. But the police trial board is something different.
Right, so the police trial boards are an internal apparatus in the police department. Right, whereas the state's attorney would be responsible for indicting a police officer, right? So the state's attorney would have to make a determination, this is where prosecuting criminally, this particular action. We're talking about within, because there are administrative things within the police department itself. And so what we're trying to do is make it so that, those of us here, those of us that, are in our communities can sit on those boards to get all the information we're not getting and be a part of the process of deciding what happens. And on that note, that's a good point you bring up in terms of the state's attorney. Part of it, it's our responsibility to, as we're doing here, to get the people that we elect to do the things we want them to do. And so I think, today's important. It's also going to be important that we put pressure on our local state's attorneys, to prosecute these kinds of cases. And what this does is, if non-law enforcement can investigate these incidents, then it gives us the information we need that oftentimes we're not allowed to have. It gives us the information to go to a state's attorney and say, here's all this information of folks that have investigated our police, and this is an important thing to prosecute. Question?
Yeah, well, it's a comment, really. I think that it's important to recognize some of the history. The first police force in the United States was created for the purpose of slave catching, runaway slaves. And the history of the police in the United States has been to enforce racism and oppression of the working class ever since. So I think these cases of police brutality and police murder are not aberrations. They're built into the system.
That's right.
Now, in the United States, and we're here trying to change the law. In the United States, about 3/4 of the law deals with property relations. Property in the broad sense, including a business, equipment, not just land. 3/4 of the law deals with that, but about half of 1% of the population owns most of that. So it's really their legal system. So it's good and important that we're here trying to make a few positive changes to slightly limit their ability to brutalize and kill people. But on the other hand, I think it's important to keep in mind that what we're doing is sort of like, were we living under slavery, it's like the fight that the whips can't be more than 3 feet long and they can't separate families by more than 300 miles. It's analogous to that because we're fighting for slight changes within an awful system. And in my opinion, we got to get rid of this awful system. We need a system where racism is no longer profitable. In the United States today, about half the corporate profits derive from racism because of the lower wages they pay to people of color, because of the divide and conquer aspects of it and non-unionization in the South where racism was historically most intense and low wages for everybody. So I just want to encourage everybody to think that, yes, this is important work, we've got to keep it up, but we need a long-range vision of a society that's free of these things. And we're not going to be free of it under capitalism.
So great comments there, because this is just one lane, right? This legislative advocacy, this is one lane that we're engaging in. But this can't be, this is not the only card in the deck, right? And so from economic pressure to street demonstrations, which many of us have been a part of, all of these are different strategies. I think one of the mistakes that some people make, and I think you're so right, one of the mistakes some people make is that they feel like this stuff and legislative advocacy is the only arrow we have in the quiver. It's not, right? So this is just one thing we do. What are some other ways? I mentioned a couple. What are some other ways, what are some other things that we can do in addition and beyond even this to help bring about this vision of society that was just spoken about? What are some other things we can do? We've been banging on doors of legislators.
You can replace them with people that already have your same perspectives. There's electoral, running people for office and organizing around their campaigns there. In my time as an organizer, we always used to say the best lobbying meetings are the ones where you don't have to lobby the person and they already agree. And we have few champions like Delegate Jill Carter, who is the sponsor of this bill, but our ability to have our own people in positions of power and organizing around that is very important.
That's good. All right. So put people in place and that align with your values. That's one. Any others? Other ideas? And there's a lot of men talking. So ladies, please help balance out the genius in the room. What are your ideas? Thank you, brother. Ladies, what are your ideas? How else do we get at addressing these issues that Bill raises and what I heard as a long-term vision in terms of society that we need to be? What are some other things?
Well, I know that specifically in regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, youth are definitely at the center driving this movement. And oftentimes a lot of my peers feel that they are unequipped to handle or to at least organize within their respective communities about such issues, even though they're really passionate about it. So I think centers like the Peace Center that's in Washington, D.C., I have attended their training sessions. So to be trained and to have the certification as a trainer and then go out there and just train members within your community who are passionate about these issues so they can also organize themselves.
What were you trained
kind
on?
of, excuse me?
What were you trained on?
Nonviolent direct action. Yeah.
That's right there, I got you.
So that's something that we could do within our communities, just train each other.
You know what, Pastor? My family, we have been pounding the streets, talking to people, trying to get them to come out. We're telling them this fight is not about Tyrone. It's about everybody. We beg for help. But when you walk around and you see these people walking around like they're zombies, absolutely just dumbfounded, what do you do? We feel like we're fighting this battle ourselves because it's our loved one. We have supporters and we thank God for the supporters that we do have. But I've been raised in East Baltimore for 48 years. You would think these people would back my family. Yeah. What they tell you, I'm afraid of the police. Don't let them intimidate you. I'm a woman, 60 years old, and I'm standing for mine. All we ask, work with us. We have to show that we're together on this. You know, I can't just fight for mine and try to fight for yours. I need you out there with us. We have to make a difference. You have to hear the message, and you have to follow it. And Pastor, I'm just, like I said, I'm just lost with it because the one thing that hurts me more than anything is the fact that we had eyewitness account. We had eyewitness account the second day when we started walking through the neighborhood, giving out flyers. What happened to my child? Police never contacted my family. Never did they come to us. Never. The one time that they did just to ask us a stupid question, that's when my red flag went up. The second day, after we ran all over the city trying to find out my child did, what happened? They came to my house just to ask us, did Tyrone have any medical problems? What? seems like, back in the day, which isn't too far back, but back in the day, the church was involved in everything. And nowadays, you can't get the church to do anything. You can't get them to rally, to get the people on the corners, or everybody just meet on a particular spot. The preachers or the pastors just stay in the church. They just stay there at the pulpit. They'll say one or two things, but they never get out like they, or we never get out with them, or they never get out with us like they did back there in the 60s. At every church, a pastor was saying something or doing something, not just come and let your face be shown to say that your face was there. I mean, they got together with the neighborhoods and everyone did something. They're just not tired enough to be sick and tired. I don't understand it. I don't know.
If you don't mind me adding on to what you just said, I think that permeates into just a lot of places, because hearing President Obama's recent State of the Union address, I mean, he mentioned like Ferguson like once, and it was towards like the end of his speech, and I think that's the thing that disappointed me the most, because that was also the week in which we were celebrating MLK Day. And now I definitely see that the dream that Martin Luther King Jr. had is certainly not the change that Obama is trying to make in office. And I also believe that within our respective communities that we should march. You're absolutely right that I wish that some of my brothers and sisters would definitely march with me, but oftentimes either they're afraid, yeah.
And I just want to add, and I just want to thank you for being a strong pastor that you are. And more than that, thanking you for loving the community like you love yourself. And it's just saying, like, I feel like a lot of churches should be out here supporting this service. There are a lot of people that y'all provided the pathway with the buses to the lunch, and it's only like, I'm really disappointed. There's only like 20 people on the bus. Like, it's ridiculous. You didn't have to pay nothing, like y'all afford the cost. You know, you ain't got people to show up, and you can't even get them to show up. It's ridiculous. It's sad, man. It's really sad. It's sickening to me. And to me, I think the issue more so divide and conquer. Everybody got their little, we doing something here, we don't like her, or we don't like him. And the saddest part, it ain't about none of that. It's about us getting brutally murdered. We don't care who was leading the pathway, as long as we get justice, it don't matter. And everybody want to be in a line like, ain't about being together, loved one was brutally murdered. It ain't about none of that foolishness. And that's the part, divide and conquer. Everybody sitting on Facebook talking and tweeting when they should be here. And that's what they love, the fact that they're not here, that they're that ignorant and won't pull together. Yeah, I don't care, we don't gotta like each other. Let's love what we're doing. You know, let's love life enough to save it. You know? It's ridiculous.
I just wanted to say, in this society, we blame victims. I mean, partially, we blame victims. If you're raped, what were you wearing? If you know you're killed by the police, what were you doing? And that's part of the disconnect, that people don't get it, that this could happen to you, or even you're a human being. Where in the world is your empathy? So one of the things that I think is important to do is one-on-one. If somebody says something to you that goes against the grain, or somebody says something racist or something, you know, pro-killing black men, it's very important to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and let me tell you the story.
That's good. That's good. One-on-one, that's beautiful. Thank you. We talked a lot about the church, and I just want to say amen, amen, amen on all that was said about church not being as active. The prophetic tradition is not as popular as those posters of Dr. King would lead us to believe. And even with the 50th anniversary of Selma, we saw all the people standing together in commemoration. We're going to march over this bridge. Believe you me, 50 years ago, all them smiling, all that smiling wasn't happening. And the truth of the matter is, there are a lot of preachers today lying. They were not there with King. You know, King is not here to tell the truth and point them out. But please believe that King was not as popular as them PBS specials would lead you to believe he was. Particularly at the end of his life, when he was talking about Jesus.